Amber J. Lawson. I'm your hostess for today. Our next panel after this at 4:15 is Comedy and Philanthropy, brought to you by transformingtheworldthroughcomedy.com. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my pal. He is really the center, the being of the interwebs. Been there from the beginning. A Yahoo alum, now running everything Principato-Young, who just won an Emmy for Children's Hospital. Congratulations. Huge. As we start to infiltrate the television world with our digital awesomeness, I want to turn this over to my good friend Corey Moss.
Awesome. Thank you, Amber. And thank you once again for having me. Amber's been kind enough to ask me to moderate a panel here several times now. And I love coming out here. I love walking around to some of the other panels. And so much of it, for me, I learn about the business side of it. And what I love to do is really focus on the content, since that's the theme of this room, and specifically in comedy. And the last couple times I've been up here, I know in the spring we talked particularly about sketch, and because that was very relevant to what some of the things that we were doing. But over the past few months, I've been fortunate enough to be able to produce a couple of really fantastic scripted series, and they've been very challenging and very exciting. And that, to me, that seemed to be the reason why to focus today on scripted web series. So it's still a very new territory for me, but I've learned a lot, especially from some of the people on my panel. So I'm excited to have them, and I will introduce them now. So to my immediate left is Jackson Adams. Jackson has been making videos for the very talented George Watsky for several years, and when we approached George about doing a series, George said he would love to do it, but he really wanted to work with Jackson. And when I met Jackson, he was obviously the perfect person to do it. And Jackson has experience in TV, worked on a fabulous TV show called Curb Your Enthusiasm, among many others. And Jackson worked very hard with us this summer to make a series called Watsky's Making an Album, which we have the series is out, but I thought maybe we could show the quick trailer that we did. From the halfway point. No.
I have something really big to tell you. You have a record deal.
Shut your mouth.
There's no money, but anyways, all you have to do is write and produce an entire album, and you have 2 months. 60 days.
He sounds like a white Urkel. I don't know if you know, but I have Warren G sitting at my table right now. Wow, what a ton of fun. I'm sitting in the 101 in traffic and I'm scratching my ass again. I guess it's out of habit because it doesn't itch fidget, and I'm switching my position to my what is on my left butt cheek. Pissed because I know my stupid phone is going to ring again and I want to up and... Oh...
Is it true that you wrote Toxic by Britney Spears?
Britney Spears wasn't even in the room. She was sipping on a pina colada while I was three-weighing a waitress with Frank Sinatra, listening to African Bambaataa.
Little Birdie told me you want to make hits. Are you hungry?
Yes.
I want Starving. I want African Baby. Louder.
I'm an African baby.
Louder!
I'm an African baby! I didn't feel right. It didn't feel right saying it.
Rudy Tooty Fruity Louie, what I usually do.
We've had this conversation, and you promised me no more Cameron quotes.
Don't you dare disrespect Cameron. He is a lyrical genius.
All right, very cool. And I just realized that Jordan is not in that trailer, but did we see you?
I'm in the web series. I'm very good in it.
Yes. And that segues us perfectly to Evan. Evan basically runs Loud for Electus. It's one of their 3 premium content YouTube channels, as well as other digital initiatives for Electus. Evan and I work very closely together, talk several times a day, and he was very instrumental in making the Watsky series happen and was a great creative force behind that. And we're working together on a couple of other scripted series that'll be coming out later this year on Loud that are going to be very exciting when we're able to tell you about them. So that's Evan. And then finally down at the end is Jordan Morse, who is a client of my company, Principato-Young, and has a lot of experience on doing web projects. Did another project for Electus called KLOL. And when we set out a couple of months ago to make a scripted web series for IGN, which is a very popular gaming site. Jordan was the first person I called because we wanted to have some comedic voices who also have a true passion for the gaming world. And so Jordan and
just say nerd.
Okay, Jordan was the coolest. He was the biggest nerd I knew. And so Jordan and a couple of other...
We went through our client roster list. We thought, who has had sex the least in the past year?
Yes. And so Jordan worked on that, and we're going to premiere. This is actually not even the final cut, so this will change, but we're going to premiere the trailer for this series right now.
What the hell is that?
A glamorous, hot fee nerd.
She's not a fee nerd. She's a faux nerd.
Oh, yeah! You still suck!
I love dinners where someone else pays.
This much inhaled fluorescence can't be healthy.
Hey, Igor, can I see you in the back?
Is the store in trouble?
Is the store in trouble? I need this place to start making 17 times as much as it is now, or I'll have to close it. And I'm making you store manager.
You almost punched out a cashier.
Not now.
Everybody!
You suck.
No, you suck!
You guys got a $2 bill. You wouldn't question it, right?
This carpet is filthy.
That's vomit. Vomit. That's my vomit.
Are you coming out as a furry?
Not a furry.
Stop beating up the customers! I didn't go to business school!
Igor, pull it together.
Was it appropriate striking a coworker?
All right. Thank you for clapping. You don't have to do that, but I really appreciate it. It makes Jordan feel better about his sex life that you can clap for that. So
I mean,
I'm gonna
once the ladies see that.
I'm going to start with Jordan. Actually, Jordan, you are an actor and as well as a host and many other things. Tell me about how the web projects and stuff has sort of changed your career, or the opportunities they've brought to your career, I guess.
Yeah, boy, it's been a huge part of my life this past year. For about 5 years, I was a host on a show, a Fuel TV show called The Daily Habit. Fuel TV is a super niche cable network that does, like skateboarding and snowboarding and UFC and stuff. So kind of every day I had that, segment producer job of going into the office and planning a segment and then going out to host a segment. And that show ended December of last year, so this whole year for me has been all web projects, mostly for the YouTube initiative. I worked on KLOL for Electus, which was kind of a sketch show based on internet culture. Just wrapped Game Shop, and before that I was a writer for the Fine Brothers on a show they did called My Music. And just the fact that I've worked on 3 different huge productions and it's not even the end of the year is incredible. It speaks to the velocity that web work moves in that, it's all kind of conceived and shot and put out there so rapidly. So I feel like I've gotten, so much different kinds of experience just from being in this for a few months. So yeah.
Great. So the point that we're establishing with that is that these are becoming very big and there's very many of them. And So, Evan, you look at pitches for web series constantly, a lot from me.
Yeah. They're all great, by the way.
Thank you. I know.
All of them.
What are you looking for? What do you think? We obviously know there's no secret recipe for this stuff yet, but tell me what you're looking for and what you think is a key to success of these things.
Part of it is definitely just the package. Having talent that has some sort of a promotional angle built in, whether it's someone who has done a lot of work on the web previously, as both of these gentlemen have, which is why we were excited to work with them. Or a name certainly doesn't hurt. And the name can be, it can go one of two ways, right? You can either go really big and have, a great name attached, which is obviously difficult if you are kind of just starting out. Or, if you can, find a way to have someone who is internet famous for some reason, that is, a great commodity. I was talking just recently with a colleague of mine, and he coined this term that we're trying to get going. We call them mobile celebrities. And it's the idea of, like, in the 21st century, in order to really be a celebrity who has significant value, you have to talk to your fans constantly, and you have to be willing to get in fights with them and defend yourself and make fun of them and have fun by doing all of that. And those are really the only types of people that we like to work with. So from a packaging perspective, that's really important. And then just as far as content is concerned, obviously, understanding that it's a show that we can accomplish in a budget is definitely important as a general first step. But more than anything, what works online that we've found in our kind of limited experience so far in doing them for our YouTube channel since July, creating a world, creating something that is really big, really rich. You saw that trailer for Watsky's Making an Album, and what we loved about that was not only George and Jackson's previous work, but also the fact that it was the type of series that you needed to watch multiple times in order to get all the jokes. And that's the type of stuff that does well online. And you can see it from the fact that everyone watches 30 Rock and The Office online, which is why they're barely going to be on television anymore.
Thank you, Evan. So, Jackson, when, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you've done a lot of videos in the past and television work and stuff. What was distinctly different about directing a web series for you?
Well, first of all, I went to school for film production, and my background was always doing sort of narrative, short form, like 3-act structure kind of things. And then ended up sort of falling into doing YouTube, like a lot of music videos. George Watsky and I were roommates and friends in college, and started working with him a lot. But what was interesting for me right off the bat was that in going into web content, the first thing we sort of try and think about is how to make it shareable, and how, there's sort of a sweet spot with music videos a lot of time, and little viral videos that we try and make them like, 2.5 minutes is like a really great sort of time frame. So going into a web series, we thought, okay, well, we're making internet content, and we want to make them really short, little sort of nuggets that are very shareable and almost just little scenes. But what we found was that people were watching them like they watch TV shows.
Yep.
And people were requesting longer and longer episodes. And we'd go in thinking that we would want to make just short little things because people's attention span is seemingly much different on YouTube, but it's not entirely the case, it seems.
I think it depends on the type of content, too. Like the music videos that you do, it might have a different kind of sweet spot in length. But yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, the episodes for Watsky, I mean, you guys can go online and read the comments. People are literally yelling at us to make them longer.
Yeah, no, so it was, that what's different is that went into it trying to sort of take a TV show format but pack it into a small size. And that, I think, is sort of it's an interesting new approach. It's a new sort of art form because they're not standalone short films, but they're also not little, sort of 1.5, 2.5 minute music videos. So it's different whole animal.
Exactly. So I think I mentioned earlier, but Jordan obviously was one of the main writers of Game Shop, which you saw, and hopefully you gathered from the trailer that the premise is somewhat like The Office or maybe Clerks set inside a game store. And that was really when I brought Jordan into the room and said that was basically the one line I told him, and then said, "Now go off and write." So Jordan, tell me, for you, were you writing in a specific way, knowing that the platform was going to be the digital space, and particularly, one of these premium YouTube channels, and tell me what the, I guess sort of the pros and cons were going into writing this.
Sure, totally. And kind of like these guys were saying, I think it's, there's definitely a kind of a happy medium, I think, with web content, and kind of the common thing that everybody thinks is like, shorter, better, get in there, these kids have ADD. I'm doing an impression of a Hollywood guy, by the way. The kid, you make it a minute, but I think, like with Watsky, I think if the product is good and it's, if it's a good product that has jokes, then it can be a little bit longer. So writing Game Shop, I think we were all thinking of like, what is something between a sitcom episode and a comedy sketch? So we had to think a little bit in terms of comedy sketches, like what's something that has 3 beats and kind of wraps up within 5 minutes, but also adding a little bit of narrative. So, it's like so funny. There's so many screenwriting books that'll tell you how to write a sitcom or how to write an hour or how to write a feature film. But like, this is this kind of new weird thing that there's not a Save the Cat, Robert McKee book for yet, So we're kind of exploring that, and I think kind of what we found out works best is something that kind of has the pace of a comedy sketch, but kind of some of the narrative devices of a sitcom. So it's a weird hybrid thing that I think will come off really good with Game Shop.
Yeah. You should write that book.
I like that way of describing.
Oh yeah, I'll be the Robert McKee of internet videos. God help you if you use Keyboard Cat.
I think
my
Jordan,
Robert McKee impression and my Hollywood guy impression
very similar.
Yeah.
I do one voice.
Yeah. I think that Jordan made a great point though, which is what the challenge to me, I think, in producing these is that you don't know necessarily where your audience is coming from, and for us, part of the job is finding that audience. So you don't know if they're there from the beginning and they're watching them linearly, or if they stumble across one or one was forwarded to them or whatever. And so in many ways you need to satisfy them both ways, and I think that's exactly what Jordan's point was, which is they can live on their own. They sort of have that sketch quality to them, and I produce a lot of sketch. I produce a show on Yahoo called Sketchy that we do every week, and there's elements of that stuff, and then there's the obviously the whole storylines and linear, and for us, we knew that we wanted to have the kind of story that you would come back to every week. So of course we made it Jordan's love story, and you'll have to see if he hooks up with our beautiful actress Bria, who you might recognize from Heroes or Dexter or Friday Night Lights. Yes, she's great. Anyway, so my next question is, again, I guess for all of you guys, is what do you like? Are there other sort of secrets to this? That, I mean, there's a lot of people in the room who are content makers, and what sorts of things have you learned from your experiences doing these? That what wisdom can you share with them?
I think to Jordan's point, something that I find myself saying a lot is, to Jordan's point, like, we're not trying to hit a specific length here. We always say, as long as it's good, we don't care how long it is. But the most important thing that it can possibly be, that I feel like I say over and over again, is tight. There's still the idea that you can click away. There's someone watching can click away at any second, and any little transition that there is in the narrative can potentially give them an excuse to do that. And so what we've started really doing, and we did with Watsky for sure, is really having, everything happens for a reason in each episode. As much as like the broad arc of the series is definitely there, and Watsky, you know, he's trying to make his own album and self-finance his own album in 60 days. Each individual episode also, right at the beginning, establishes exactly where it's going to go, and every single thing that happens in the episode is a matter of trying to get there. There's no, every time that there was a little joke off to the side that didn't make sense, if it wasn't quick enough, we had to cut it. And Jackson and I argued on a few of them, and he won. And typically he was right, by the way. But that said, you know, it's always, what we've found a lot is that having that plot device is way more important in a web series than I've seen it in a Walking Dead episode, for instance, where, you know, you're happy if you can just watch zombies for an hour.
I agree with all that. I think that there's sort of a feeling about web series where, I mean, with the rise of the 5D and the 7D and all this sort of stuff that you can very easily shoot really beautiful, highly produced, it seems, content on your own. It's sort of, there's a feeling that you can just sort of like shoot stuff and talk and like sort of improv and sort of have it be a very free form kind of thing. That's a lot to me like the mumblecore movement, which is like, it's like the new like 5D core movement, I call it. And I think that, you know, Jordan was talking about, there's no Save the Cat or there's no story by McKee for web series, but I think that a lot of that still applies, and I think you need to go in with story being first, and you need to consider it. You know, people are going to get hooked in the same way they are in the first minute of a web series, the way they are in the first 10 pages of a script. And I think that that's something that shouldn't be forsaken for the sake of, oh, well, it's a web thing, so it can just, you know, we'll sort of make it loose and the sound can be sort of crappy and stuff. I think that you need to go in with a high production standard. And, you know, in my opinion, I like to shoot things like a TV show. You know, I wasn't looking at other web series for inspiration. I was looking at TV. And I think that story still is a huge, huge element that shouldn't be forsaken.
And that might sound more complicated than it actually is. I mean, if you have a group of people who you want to interact in order, and you know that just by being in a certain location, they're fulfilling kind of the overall goal of the series, just have them do something. Have them build a shelf. Anything.
I have that show, actually.
No, great. Awesome.
Yeah, and I think when you make web content or content that is aimed at a niche or even a younger audience, there's a big temptation to pander. Like, oh, what are these kids like? Nyan Cat? Just have somebody say Nyan Cat. There, they love that. You know, like, there's that temptation just to, like, you know, slip in those references or just mention something that maybe, you know, you don't understand. So, I mean, it's like, but also it's a weird tightrope because you do have to acknowledge that this is a real specific culture, you know, like, and that you have to find that line between, you know, speaking to them and pandering to them. And God knows that was an issue with Game Shop because it is such a, you know, gamers are such a specific audience with a language all their own. So we didn't want to pander, you know, we didn't want to just have a Babe in a Lara Croft outfit stroll by for no reason, but we did want to acknowledge that this is a culture and that we understand it and we get what's funny about it. So, I mean, and I have no advice other than realize that that's a tightrope and, you know, try and talk to the audience, but in a non-condescending way. Like, you know, like, always make story important. Like, yeah, I totally see how there's that weird instinct in web video just to make it silly and crazy and improvised and then just do nightmare editing on it, you know. So, yeah, but I do love that we're getting into a space where you can make something that's more like a TV show and that it has good storytelling, but also has some of the tenets of web video.
It's just though that also, I mean, the internet, it is a community, and people love inside jokes, you know. And it's funny because I'll be like doing work at home, and that'll be just sort of perusing YouTube and going on Reddit, you know, and sort of like finding out what's popular on the internet right now. And it's like you throw in little gags that some people might get and other people might not. But it's sort of in internet culture. It's, you know, Arrested Development does this all the time, and people like references to pop culture that you know, where the show itself exists. So I try and pander a little bit, you know, not entirely, but like little sort of gags here and there, that insider stuff.
And speaking of that, Jackson, you actually perfectly segued into my next question, which is, from you three, I'm curious to know what do you consider some of the best scripted web series that have come out so far, and that you think really did it right, and what we can learn from them?
Besides Watsky, because legit, what we're trying to do with Loud, which is so Alexis has 3 funded YouTube channels. One of them is General Pop Culture for males 18 to 34. And that's called Loud. That's where Watsky aired. We have another scripted comedy actually that's doing very well on our Hispanic channel, which is called Nuevan. It's a partnership with Sofia Vergara. And then we have a food channel that is not doing scripted comedy, which is shocking, I know. But, I think what these guys...
Guy Fieri sitcom. Sorry, just off the top of my head.
Wow.
Get him out there, get some Crocs on him.
Making deals right here. No, I think that idea of combining the best parts of TV, the best parts of a web series, putting them all together and creating something that's completely new and stands in its own right in a new kind of creative form is really where we're looking at all of these series going right now. So I do love Watsky because we made it in that image, and I think it worked. I think there are plenty of series that have been doing that for a long time that still stand the test of time. I mean, I'm going to say it. This has to be, I haven't been here for most of the day, but I can't imagine this is the first time this has been mentioned, but The Guild is still great. Mm-hmm. It's still great, and that's because they've been doing this for 8,000 episodes.
There was something on the Onion's YouTube channel called Sex House, and what Sex House is it is kind of it started out as a parody of trashy reality shows of Bachelor Pad and things like that, and then as it went on in the series, it devolved into this crazy kind of David Fincher nightmare story, and it did it in such a delightful and seamless way. And I laughed out loud as much watching Sex House as I do watching an episode of 30 Rock. But because it was like it was able to take that crazy, surprising turn that you could have never done on television. So that, to me, is one of the better examples of something that is written as smart as a TV show, but also takes advantage of the tenets of web video.
Can I add to that also, Awkward Black Girl is incredible. Sorry. I mean, further to everything that's been said.
I'm going to sound like a total fool, but I can't remember the name of this web series, but it's where they have little kids tell stories, and they take the script that the kids wrote and then have actors... mouthing the words the kids they recorded, so it's just these nonsensical scenes that are just trail off and sort of don't make any sense. That's my sense of humor a lot of the time. I love 5-second films as well, which is sort of a web series, but not exactly on the same wavelength as what we're talking about. But those are my inspirations.
Cool. And Evan, you mentioned the Guild, and Sandeep recently from the Guild put out a web series on my damn channel called Save the Supers. That's excellent. I would recommend checking out. And while you're on my damn channel, there's some other really good stuff on there. Wainy Days is, to me, one of the greatest web series. It's been around for a really long time. Gigi was great. Horrible People, that's on my damn channel, is really great. They have a new series called Daddy Knows Best that's really funny. We were talking right before this panel, and downstairs at later today, Ken Marino is going to be speaking about this. But Burning Love, which was a parody of The Bachelor that was on Yahoo earlier this year, was a really fantastic web series. And I think what I really liked about that is I appreciated how much effort they put into the details of the production and really making it. It was obviously a parody, so they were really going after the look and feel of The Bachelor. But I think those types of things are sort of needed to set themselves apart a little bit in what Jackson called the 5D core era, where there are so many things. And there's literally so many scripted projects that we were a few weeks out from shooting our series Game Shop, and just for fun, I thought I would type the word Game Shop into YouTube, and there was a series called Game Store, and it was like, wow, like someone else has, and it's just an example of like there's like so much scripted content out there, and luckily I felt like that they weren't doing the same things that we were doing from a production standpoint. But I want to open it up to the room for any questions for these guys. Hopefully you have a lot, because they're really smart people, even though they may not look like it. Come on, don't be shy.
We've answered everything.
Yes.
Do you want to hear more impressions?
In the very far back, please speak your question.
I was wondering if you have recommendations for length of each of your episodes, and also for length of the total series for a season.
Great question. I think what we had sort of touched on in the very beginning was that, and I think Evan said it, which is that there's not necessarily a certain length per episode. The content should drive that. I always say that to anyone who asks me. But for me, I do a lot of development in this space. So when I sit down with somebody who brings me an idea, we look at, and we want to sell this thing. We want to get the money to make it. So we look at, can we make this web series at a lot of different lengths? And so that if I go into, to My Damn Channel, who doesn't want to do anything over 5 minutes, we can do it that way. But if I want to, sell it to Vugaru, who will do a project that's linear and 90 minutes, I can sell it to them as well. So, depending on the idea, we'll even develop the same concept for different lengths and different platforms. But, it obviously works for some things and not for others. So, I would say that to let the content drive it, I personally am always a fan of short form, but as Evan pointed out, like there's more and more examples now of people wanting longer and longer. And the next series that Evan and I are doing together, that's going to be giant. We're doing 10, 12 minute episodes, and hopefully it's a huge giant success. And next year I'll tell you guys all about it.
And as far as kind of total length, just from the perspective of kind of from the electives perspective, as we kind of use digital to service what we're doing in television, what we're doing in international, what we're doing in advertising, and everything else, everything that we do is a pilot to be able to be upstreamed. I mean, the fact of the matter is, in today, like, television is where the money is for this stuff. It's unfortunately or not. And so everything that we shoot is going to fit nicely into an 11-minute pilot for, like a late night animation thing, or a 22 or a 44.
Yeah, I just maybe want to reiterate Evan's comment about making things tight. I mean, yeah, just kind of looking at something and not chopping it up to the point where it's nonsensical, but just making sure that you've trimmed the fat for your thing. But yeah, but also realizing that, that short attention span kid that everybody talks about maybe isn't as severe as you think he is.
Yeah. I think, people have been talking a lot about length over the last year, and I think a big part of it is that, YouTube with their channels initiative, had sort of gone out to the content creators like Electus and sort of, and because I guess this was sort of the only way to do it was to sort of put it into a minutes type of model, which is you need to deliver a certain amount of minutes and with this amount of funding. And so suddenly it did become very much about minutes. When I worked at Yahoo, we never looked at anything, and there was no reason to, as far as how long something was. So suddenly that made everyone really look at minutes. And one of the things that we did with Watsky, and I think you're seeing a lot of, is you have your episode, which is tight, like we're talking about, and then you have your bonus. And every episode that we did on Watsky, we released a separate bonus video, and they were different things. They were interviews with the cast or with Jackson, or a fun little bit, or a live performance, or whatnot. But and it was sort of a way for us to feed the audience who did want more and more minutes, but keep the episode tight. And I think you can apply that sort of thinking to any kind of web series, even if you are making that really homemade, your buddies in a room type of series. You can think about the eventual fans that you're going to create and some other ways to service them, but at the main time focus on what your actual story is that you're trying to get across.
Two questions. One,
No, you just get one. Okay.
What about the sizzle reel? Is that what Evan or Tori would expect? If someone comes in with that, that's pretty tight?
It's good to have most of the time. It's
the question was, what about sizzle reels? Is it good to have those, and what length should that be if you do?
Lengthwise, if you're bringing a sizzle reel, it's 60 seconds, 60 or 90. Don't go nuts. But if you're coming into like someone like us with a brand new pitch and you don't necessarily have the production base to go out and shoot it in a way that you would be proud of, don't show me something that is not to the level of where you need it to be, because it's not a big deal for us to fall in love with the idea, partner on it, and then produce it internally at a level that we're all happy with. So it's kind of the double-edged sword. And then the same thing where it's, you could miss a casting opportunity then. You had to get actors to come in and play your sizzle reel, and then all of a sudden, either they're connected to the series or now that's the only person that we have in mind for it, and we've totally missed out on the fact that such and such would be fantastic for the role. Stuff like that.
I love sizzle reels. I do them all the time, but I do them to sell the package and not the idea. So if I have just the idea, then I take that out on paper. But if I've packaged it and I have the talent and I feel like this idea needs to have this talent, and that's when I'll make the sizzle.
Smart.
The other thing is about the demographics, because we've sat through a couple of these and they're saying their voice usually between this and this. What other ranges can you do? Because some of those are not in that range.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, Evan and I were actually just talking about this the other day, which is, I think, it's like cable TV. I mean, certainly ESPN and Lifetime have completely very different demos, and I would say the exact same thing about Yahoo versus most of the YouTube channels. Or there's a lot of great content that Disney, for example, is making. Or so I don't think there's any one particular demo in the digital space. I think it's really about who your content provider or who your content partner is on that. I will say that, I do think a lot of the really broad distributors tend to skew a little more female, like the portals maybe, like at Yahoo, AOL, MSN probably skew a little more female. YouTube probably skews a little more male. I don't know if you guys wanted to add anything on that, but
I would agree with all that.
Pets are being underserved.
All right, more questions. I love it. Ma'am?
You're obviously a little more produced than the people that go out just with the camera with their buddies. So what kind of crews do you have? How big are your crews? Where do you find them? How do you work with them?
How much money do you have? I will spend it. It really comes down to the budget, and we try to shoot as big as we can with what but we certainly have to chip things away if the budget's not where it is. I think we shot a lot of Watsky with 2 cameras going at a lot of times. We try to do that when we can to help get cramped more. We shot all of Game Shop with 2 cameras rolling at one time. It just really depends on the budget, I think. So.
Like people would make their own episodes of our shows. I guess I would prefer they didn't do that. Leave it to us. So I mean, I guess, just from a guy who knows nothing about legalese, I guess, having an inferior product associated with mine doesn't sound great. But if you want to do a dubstep remix of my voice, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Is it's going to depend on what you're doing. Are you committing comedy crime, which is doing the same joke in a different way that may even be better than what we're doing, and that's not nice. But there's nothing we can do about it. It's just a comedy crime, as opposed to doing our Hispanic channel Nuevan has a video that's gotten over 16 million views in the last 3 months in Mexico, and it's a song. And so every single day, people are posting reaction videos to the song in Mexico and stuff. And we absolutely allow that. We'll monetize it if they use our video or if they use our song, but 100%, that's an advertisement for us.
Yeah, the best thing that can happen is that people share it,
Yeah.
and instead of trying to make their own episodes of it. You know, with like George stuff, we would get, I guess on Facebook or something, people would take pictures of like themselves doing expressions that George had done, sort of like little fan things, and that's humbling and honoring. But you know, it's, I think when you get into like shooting your own episodes of that, other people's stuff, that's, you know, just share it.
Sir, in the plaid shirt, since it's plaid day.
Yeah.
What kind of price points do you play with, like cost per minute? What's the typical budgets that you guys have?
Great question. You know, I would say there's not really a typical budget because there's such a wide array of people who are making and distributing web content. So, you know, I know for me who have made, you know, 20 shows over the last year and a half or so, that I've done everything from, you know, $5,000 for 20 minutes of content to $500,000 for 20 minutes, maybe more than 20. But so all, you know, I think it's very wide ranging. I think there kind of is an average with the YouTube channels, and I would say that's between maybe $1,000 a minute on the low end to $1,500, and there are some channels that I've been able to convince to spend $2,000 a minute. So, but I think, you know, a way to look at that is to also look at that bonus content that you have. So, you know, I know like with Watsky, we were able to put a lot of our, you know, into our, you know, a lot of our finances into our 50 minutes worth of content or something like that we did in the actual series. And then, you know, our interviews and things like that we're shooting to go along with it. Am I revealing like a little dirty secret of web? Yeah. But you know what I'm saying. So, you know, and I think, would you agree, Evan, that's kind of about in the area?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
if you can do it less than that, I mean, that, you know, I think that makes it more valuable. And, you know, I just went into Yahoo with some fresh pitches the other day, and I literally put a little asterisk by like 5 of them and said, these are my bargain bin shows. And because, you know, I think that, you know, because it's not, you know, television and there's a blueprint and there's a certain number that they want to hit with each show or whatever, that it can be so wide. And you know, that could be one of the most appealing things about your show, is that you can do it at a really low cost point. So, I mean, you know, I'd say that.
Aside from Walking Dead, I'm wondering if there's any television you guys watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you want to speak in terms of like as far as inspiration goes, or just things I love? I love Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love Breaking Bad. I love Arrested Development. Flight of the Conchords. Those are, I mean, aside from Breaking Bad, those were yeah, really. Actually, you know, I think the reason they stopped was because they had such a hard time writing so many great songs. Yeah, they did. Yeah. Yeah, I think they just sort of ran out of steam. But those are sort of the free-form comedy stuff.
Jordan, you watch mostly porn, right?
Yeah. Oh boy. I was gonna make. Yeah. I thank you for that setup. I probably best not to.
Yeah.
Don't take the bait, Jordan. Don't take the bait.
Porn's great. Yeah, but it's kind of an internet spinoff of that.
In the back. Great question. Anyone want to take it?
Well, if you're shooting a web series, you might find some money that someone dropped on the ground, like in the shooting location. You could strike oil when you're setting up a light. Oh, boy. Make the premise of your web series that there's a bank robbery and actually do the bank robbery. So then just shoot that. Yeah. These are all great business models.
It's the answer is it's still tough. No one's going to tell you otherwise, I don't think. If someone else does, please call me. I mean, at least on our end, what Electus looks at our our series, at least as part of the YouTube initiative, is definitely a long-term investment for us, and being able to build up something that has an engaged audience that we can bring to other platforms where we can eventually either upstream it to television, like I mentioned before, where we can sell the advertising around it ourselves, along with a partner like YouTube, stuff like that. So it's still not easy, and I think the people who have right now, kind of as folks like Yahoo and YouTube and everyone kind of open up to fund original content. I think the people who are benefiting the most are people like everyone kind of in here who are talented writers, talented directors, talented actors who now have a plethora of people who are just clamoring to get content from them.
Good.
It's all of these YouTube channels.
I would just say one other thing to add to that, which is, to me, I think it's a volume game. So, if you are, a producer and you are making one web series, I would tell you to make about 3 more. Yep. Because, you're going to make a little from each one, and if you can make a lot, then that eventually is enough money that you'll be able to sustain yourself on it. And also, you never know what's going to pop, and if you can make more, you can stack your odds. So
say yes to everything. Just create content.
Just say yes.
The more, the better. Just say yes.
Is that the takeaway?
Yes. Can we get he's had his hand up for a long time.
Oh my gosh, who is it?
Yes. Right. Do you have one more question? Yeah. All right. Last question.
Have any of you guys played around in the animation space for scripted comedy on the web, and what do you see as the future of that?
So I love it. I've done a couple of things. I haven't done a series yet. I've mostly done it in the sketch space. And when I'm out there pitching things, the main thing I get is I would love to do animated, but there's no way that I can do it. And I'm not an animator, and I don't know how they've done it, but I've been able to make some pretty cool animated things for not a really expensive price. So it's like anything. I think there's people out there, and I was talking to one guy who I basically just gave a bunch of money to, and then he went out and found all the animators and made it and turned in the product to me. And I said, "How did you do it?" And he said, "Well, I have an animator in Austin, and an animator in Des Moines, and an animator in Cedar Falls." And and he just sort of pulled these people together who are in different parts of the country who are willing to work at night on something or whatever. So. I do think that there's going to be more of that, and I know the animated channels on YouTube are doing really well, I think. So it's definitely if you are an animator, I would say, if you can figure out how to make it at a low cost, I would sell that, because I think a lot of people just believe that they can't. And if you can, I think that's valuable. So.
Fantastic. Let's give it up for these dudes in scripted
Thank you, guys.
comedy.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.